Hello everyone, I am Erika of the storytellingjeweler.com and you are watching my weekly broadcast Coffee Time with Erika. I am really happy that you decided to join me today. Today is going to be a very, very special edition of our broadcast since it is the first one actually since we finished the contest. But the most important thing is that I will have a very special guest today. So Sarah says, hello Sarah, that she can see me and she can hear me. So that's great. I'm very happy that the technical aspect is all right. Hello Niti, Cathy, Kata, Adriana, Cathy, Sherry. It's lovely to see you. I am very happy that you could find the time to join me today. So, International Beading Week just ended 2 days ago, and I hope you could participate in a lot of different activities. There was so much out there organized by the guild itself, the Beadworkers Guild, and also by fellow designers. So I hope that you had lots and lots of fun. We were beading together last week on Friday. My tutorial, which was my contribution to the International Beading Week, the Star Anise bracelet. And if you missed it, then you can just find the recording and you can download the tutorial from my page. It matches, well, here you can see the bracelet and a pendant in completely different colors, but the motifs, they match each other. Actually, I took the bail of the pendant and then I modified it into one of the elements of the bracelet. So that's how the bracelet was born. And you can see that they match each other completely. So if you would like to bead a complete set, then you can also still find the Star Anise pendant tutorial on my page and bead them in the same colors as Kata did, for example. She just posted right before the broadcast 2 sets, not even one. Or Speed Beader. In the meanwhile, Honey has to leave. So see you later, Honey. Miriam, Iris, Susan, Karina, Sharon, Anita, Tanya, Kathy, Deb, Corinne, Donna, beaders from all over the world. So happy to see you here. So before I would invite my guest to the screen, I would like to return a bit to our contest, the first storytelling beading contest. So we were all working very hard. You were all working so hard during the past month. You were experimenting with new material, new kind of material. You were trying new ways of making jewelry. I know that many of you tried bead embroidery, for example, for the first time. Or Petra, hello Petra, she tried, for example, working with L2 Studio cabochons for the first time during the past month. And the whole contest, it was a big celebration of what you have achieved. And it was wonderful to see all your entries. And today I would like to just show the winners of each category, because they deserve to shine. So Annalene made this beautiful pendant, and she was the winner of the storytelling tutorial category. She used the calypso motif for the middle of the pendant. Then Kata Dudash, she modified the Diwali bracelet, and I have a feeling that yeah, she modified the Diwali bracelet and she made it into this pendant. But I apologize, I actually just a moment. Yes, I apologize. I put on the screen of another creation from Kata, which also was a finalist, but it was a finalist in the first category, not in the second. So I apologize for the mistake. In the second category, where you had to use one of the no one has to bead alone tutorials, Kata actually made this beautiful bracelet. She took a motif from the Tushinsky bracelet or earrings, because we made them both a bracelet and matching earrings, and she used it in a bead embroidered bangle cuff. So, and I love it because it's happy and royal at the same time. So well done. Then, for the third category, our winner was Elena Lazuwig, and she beaded this beautiful piece inspired by Monet's painting. And I'm sure you recognize the water lilies, so characteristic to this painter. So well done. It is like a little painting on its own. And then we had an extra category, and this pendant, based on the Sashiko tutorial, it was made by Shirley Moore. And what I love about it, that she took the basic motif, the Sashiko motif, and then she added the bail, the cord, and even a beaded clasp. And even if she chose a cabochon, which is, I think, it is a challenge on its own to incorporate it into a beaded piece. Shirley managed to bead a very beautiful, harmonious necklace. And congratulations to our winners one more time. And big thank you and big hugs and congratulations to everyone who participated. You can all be very proud of yourselves. So, and as you know, our jury consisted of 5 fellow bead designers who volunteered their time to judge your entries. And the jury consisted of Helena Tanglim, Cora Sparidans, Anna Lindell, Susan Sassoon, and Cathy Dean. And after the broadcast, please take a moment to look up their websites, to look up their social media pages, and please leave a comment, maybe make a purchase, because they are all doing wonderful things, very nice tutorials, or even sign up for a workshop. I'm 100% sure that if you decide to, then you will have a wonderful experience and you will learn a lot from all of the jury members. And as those of you who kept an open eye and saw what was happening on my social media pages in the morning, already know that who is going to be my guest, my special guest today. So now I would like to invite one of the jury members and fellow beadwork designer and good friend, Cathy Dean, to join us for a coffee. Hello, Cathy. It's just a moment. I unmuted you. Okay.
Thank you. I'll try that again. Hello, and thank you so much for having me. And hi to everyone. I'm seeing all the hellos come up down the side. Lots of names I recognise. So it's really lovely to be talking to you all.
And it's such a pleasure to have you here. And we
Oh,
even
pleasure
have
to
a
be here.
sneak peek to your studio.
Oh, yes, yes. I usually try and do Zoom calls and things actually in the studio. It's where I spend most of my time beading, although it is actually also my dining room. So if you ever come round for dinner with me, you get to see all the beadwork in case the conversation gets boring. So
I don't expect to turn it that ways, but it's very nice to see a little bit of your studio.
thank you.
So those of you, I don't think that there is anyone out there watching the broadcast who would not know you, but I just put your put the address of your website on the screen. So
Yeah, thank you.
beadflowers.co.uk. And can you just shortly introduce yourself to those, if there is someone who don't know you yet?
Yes, of course. Well, basically, I started beading back in 2003. And the reason I got started was a complete accident. I had been quite seriously ill. Before I started beading, I worked as a management consultant. And I basically just collapsed on the way into work one day. That was late 2002. I was, as I say, seriously ill. I was completely bedbound for months. And it was during that time, somehow I ended up receiving a catalogue about beads from a bead shop here in the UK. And in that, there was a book with this most gorgeous French beaded rose on the front cover. And up until that time, I had no idea what beading was all about. And I just couldn't believe that you could make something three-dimensional out of beads. So I looked at that and I was like, right, I have to learn how to do that. So my parents gave me the book for my birthday, which was February kind of time. And that's how I got started. So firstly, the French beading, then I moved on to peyote stitch and, gradually discovered all the bead weaving techniques. And basically one thing led to another.
And 2002, that's like nearly 20 years ago.
Yeah, it is. It's a long time I've been beading now. But I mean, at that point, it was just a hobby. And it gave me back, yes, a sense of purpose because I was still really sick while I was doing it. But I did discover that beading is something you can kind of do for 10 minutes and then put down. So I could do as much or as little as I had the energy for doing. And it was just therapeutic as well. I think just the creating it's a very calm process actually beading, as you all know. So all of that helped. I'm still battling with the illness. It's chronic fatigue syndrome or ME. It goes by both names and a few others besides as well. But I've got it more under control at the moment. But it can flared up really badly in 2016. So I have to watch things all the time, but I'm just really fortunate that I have the beading for therapy and it's something that I can kind of arrange around how good or bad I'm feeling. So, so my process of evolving from hobby into full-time career, which it is now, it was that, an evolution. I didn't ever plan it. I know I very quickly got addicted to beading, and there were times in the early years where I was like, oh, that'd be really amazing if I could earn a living from beading, but I never seriously thought that would happen. And funnily enough, one of the things that was really pushed me along, shall we say, was actually doing competitions. So I'm going to talk a bit more about that later on. But that's kind of the quick potted version of where I am today, selling tutorials, running online classes now, writing books, and just love sharing beading with everyone, really.
Your story is like another proof like that beading really can be therapeutic. And we touched this subject many times during the past months, because in this strange situation we are in all over the world, it became something for many of us which still provided some kind of certainty and definitely a community to rely on.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And you just get lost in the beading as well. So it's a nice way to just completely switch off from all the anxiety that's in the press and, you know, and in your own homes in some cases. I know everyone's facing different problems. And it's just, I feel like the whole world at the moment, we've got this collective negativity. So if you can find some way of moving away from that and moving back to your happy place, then it just stops you from falling over the edge into places you really don't want to go.
Exactly. Sarah says, I will put up as we talk.
Yes,
I have
you're right, Sarah.
the possibility to pull comments on the screen, so I will do that as we talk. So Sarah says, so many of us started when we got sick. Best medicine.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure there's scientific studies not related to beading, but to art and craft and creativity that do say how good it is as a therapy for, you know, all kinds of illness, really.
Absolutely.
Both physical and mental. Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, it was the thing that pulled me through my last year of university studies. I was double majoring, so it was an insane amount of stress.
It must have been, but
yeah. And as you say, it was my happy place.
Yeah.
Something to
that's it.
ground me and pull me back and show me that there is something else than linguistics.
Yes, and it just brings you back to yourself because it's a form of self-expression. So,
absolutely.
We're lucky we have it.
By the way, in the meanwhile, Lisa says, your online classes are fantastic. Your platform is excellent.
Well, I can't take any credit for the platform. It's a company called Teachable that provides that. But yeah, when I was researching, when I wanted to start online classes, I thought that it gives us everything that we need, really. So the ability to do demonstrations, to get your PDF download and talk to other people and ask me questions. So I'm so glad you're enjoying it, and thank you for taking part.
And Sherry says, beading has always been my happy place.
Yeah, good, Sherry.
And Niti, beading pulled me out from some very dark places. Yeah. It is very special to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can identify with that, for sure.
Yeah. And today with Cathy, we are going to talk about competitions. What else when it's like the first broadcast after finishing the competition? So Cathy used to participate in beading contests a lot. She was sending me before the broadcast pictures of her entries, and it's like, wow, so many and so beautiful, everything. I will show them to you later in just a little while. And we will talk about the psychological aspects of being in a competition, because I think that's something what many of us don't realize first, that entering a competition, it's not going to be only about beading, but it is so much more. And sometimes this psychological aspect, like working for a deadline, pushing myself, really like showing off what I can do, and maybe also that feeling like, what if I am not good enough? That is sometimes even harder than the beading itself. So Cathy will give us some insight on how she dealt with this part of participating in contests, in beading contests. And in the meanwhile, she will also give us tips and ideas how to improve our photography when we are taking pictures with the intentions of entering a competition, because it can be totally different compared to when we want to sell a piece or just show it off on Facebook. So those are the two things we are going to talk today, and we are really looking forward also to questions and anything you have to say. You can just add in a comment, and I will keep an eye on the comments. So, shall we get started?
Yes, let's go for it. Yeah, so well, as I said a moment ago, actually competitions were the thing that kind of started flipping me from hobby over to actually earning money from my beading. So if I go back to when I started in 2003 and quickly got addicted, by 2004, I was kind of looking around for ways to connect with other beaders. And at that time, there wasn't much online. I mean, unbelievable, but the internet was a baby thing back in 2004. I can't believe how much has changed.
Yeah.
But anyway, I heard about the Beadworkers Guild. So that sounded to me like a good organization to join. So I did.
Absolutely.
And I think it was about the following year, they ran a competition. I know I actually entered 2 contests with them, and I can't remember which order it was in, but for one of them, I know I made a little 3-dimensional snowman. And for another, I know I made a little tiny treasure chest, sort of keyring size. I've no idea what I did with photos for either of those. In fact, I may not even have had photos because I know both pieces were sent in to be juried in person. But
Cathy, just to say, you got me panicking for a second because
no, there's no photos of those. It's all right. I'll shout when we need some photos. But the thing was, it was my little snowman. To my complete shock, actually won that competition. And it was, I think, after the second piece of treasure chest also made finals in that competition. And so it was after that, then the guild, whoever was writing the the magazine at that time, contacted me and said, if I enjoy designing, did I ever write up tutorials and would I like to do a tutorial for the magazine? So I was like, oh, yes, please. So that was my first published piece. It was actually a piece called An Autumn Necklace, and it's still a pattern on my website today. But that was the first time that made me think, oh, actually, this doesn't just have to be a hobby. So, so in that sense, competitions are really key. And the next ones I remember doing were run by Beadwork magazine over in the States. So that was a whole new ball game. That was international, global, big and scary. And those, I've got the first 2 pictures are Dainty Daisy and Floral Fantasy. And they were both beaded bags that I made. I think it was 2007 by this point. That's the Floral Fantasy. And the Beadwork basically ran this competition every second year, and it always had a theme. And the 2007 theme was a beaded bag. And that's literally it. It's just make a beaded bag. So I was like, okay then. So that was the first one I made. I mean, fairly traditional. I think it's about 6 inches in size, and I have actually used it. Traditional style, but the flower on it is quite 3-dimensional. And I mean, there was just a heck of a lot of beadwork in that. I don't remember how long we had to create it, but I mean, I wasn't panicked or constrained by time. I just had the ball trying to create what was in my head, really. The other one I did, the Dainty Daisy, took things on a different track. And I think that was quite an early example of the way I tend to do things outside the box a bit. So have you got the Dainty Daisy picture there, Erika?
Dainty Daisy. Is it a brooch?
No, it is actually a bag. Yes, there. That you had the right one. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little tiny bag. Let me just bring it up again. The only way to photograph it was looking down on it, because basically the central section is the compartment. I mean, it's more of, I guess, you'd fit a few coins, maybe a lipstick in there. That's it. And then the petals around it were just add-ons. So it's literally the most impractical handbag or purse or whatever to use. But it actually ended up being one of the winners of the competition because it was different, basically. My other bag actually also made the finals, but yeah, I guess it was just the start of me taking things in very strange directions.
And how did it feel for you when you knew that this is maybe something unexpected?
Well, I mean, I think it's much better that way. I mean, I entered the competitions to have fun and to push my boundaries and to explore a theme. And that's absolutely the right way. I was going to say, actually, if anyone entered this competition because they wanted to win the prize, I think that psychologically is literally the hardest thing you can do, because the odds of you winning the prize are actually small. And it's not a reflection on your beadwork, your skills, your imagination, or anything else. You've got to remember, all competitions are judged by a panel of juries who are really, really subjective, and who also can't see your physical item. I mean, you're seeing this with mine, and my photos were really not good, as you can see, but this wasn't a competition being juried by photos. It was just the photos were for them to select which pieces they wanted to see in the flesh. So that makes a difference, and it makes things a bit easier. In that kind of scenario, you're just looking for a photo that shows approximately what your piece is. It doesn't have to, you know, show every detail of the technique or anything like that. But yeah, I think back to what I was saying, if you're entering to win, you're really setting yourself up for a tough emotional journey through that. And also, if you're entering, when we think competition, we think of competing against other people, which of course you are, there's a prize at the end of the day. But actually, again, you want to forget that idea. The real competition has to be with yourself. It's, can I push myself to do something that takes me out of my comfort zone, to create something different, to play with a new color scheme, explore some new bead types. It's basically the one opportunity you have that's a brilliant excuse to just play and push your boundaries in every direction. Especially for me, the kind of pieces I create for a competition, I would never create to sell as a tutorial. Yeah. And if I'm only working on tutorials, then I don't often get that opportunity to really push boundaries. And that's what a competition gives you. So the only way to have a good experience is to focus on the process that happens within your beading space before it goes to be judged. And in fact, if we skip on ahead to my chocolate box, there's actually about 4 photos of that, I think.
We love chocolate boxes here, by the way. I have to say, we have an inside joke in the group about chocolates. So who can answer the question that what do you do if you think that your beadwork is not flat enough? I am expecting an answer in a comment. And then if it's still not flat enough, what do you do? And in the meanwhile, I'm looking for the chocolate box.
Okay. If my beadwork isn't flat enough, how do you mean not flat enough?
We were beading lots of motifs, like this mandala-shaped motifs. During the no one has to bead alone Friday sessions.
Yeah.
So Cathy says, sit on it. That was our joke, like, yeah, sit on it. And
perfect.
Yeah, Cheryl knows it. Other Cathy knows
it. Like a chocolate and sit on it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, and if I'm to supply you with the chocolate.
And if it's still not enough, then eat a lot of chocolate and sit on it. Exactly.
Excellent answer.
Yep. We have a very well-trained crowd here. Eat more chocolate.
Yeah, I'm all for eating more chocolate. If you can't eat it, then bead it. That's my solution. Because one of the not so pleasant side effects with the ME was having to completely change my diet and cut out sugar. I have now instantly found ways that I can go back to eating chocolate without processed sugar, and so I'm okay. But yeah. Anyway, we'll probably get back to the chocolate box. So that was a piece it's my most recent competition piece, but I actually, when I finished it, decided not to put it in the competition, because I reached the point where I had just had so much fun beading it and creating something. And I thought, you know what, I actually don't want this to be judged. I don't want to go through that process. However much I have in my head that I'm enjoying the process and I've had all the satisfaction, it's almost impossible to get away from all those emotional things that happen inside of you when someone else judges the piece.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what, I'm just not going to put it in. So it was planned for Bead Dreams 2020, but bizarrely that's not happened now. Well, I don't know what's happening about the competition actually, but I mean, normally the entries for Bead Dreams are on display at Bead and Button Show, and of course they're not this year. Erika, there's another 3 pictures of the chocolate box that show the whole thing, because
the blue ones, right?
Yeah. So literally it is, that's the bottom of the box where you've got your ingredients.
That's brilliant.
I love that. You can see in the other photo, the box opens up and you've got your selection of chocolates. And in actual fact, and we've got the box closed, but with it inside, the beaded chocolates, you can actually put real chocolates underneath them. So that little green ball you can see on the left-hand side in that photo is actually one of those little Lindor chocolates. So I could fill that with 9 proper chocolates and offer people a beaded chocolate, and they would still get something to eat.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. I love it.
I mean, funnily enough, having said that, I never turn my competition pieces into tutorials. I made the exception with that one, and it's actually, I've published a book that gives you the full tutorial for that. So yeah, so if you need to eat more chocolate, anybody, you know where to come.
Exactly, head over to Cathy's website.
Yeah, I've got a lot of chocolate on there in one way or another.
Yeah, but that's so interesting what you say, that you loved it so much and then you didn't want it to be judged.
No, because I felt, because if we go back 2 years to the last time I entered Bead Dreams, which was 2018, that's my visit to the beehive. I think there's about 4 photos of that one, if you've got those. And that was another thing where I beaded that constantly for a month, and I had the loveliest time creating that and creating all the details. And at the end of it, I was so pleased with the results, and I was more than happy to send it in and have it be judged. And actually the experience of that was lovely. Bead Dreams is one of the best, well, probably in my mind, the best organized competition. We've got a panel of jury, they change every year, and each one of them judges the piece on a number of criteria. So you've got technique, you've got originality. I can't remember what they all were, but it's all quite technical. When I got my piece back, it had all the judges' comments and marks. I mean, all anonymously, so I don't know which judge judged in which way. But I found it really helpful to see. And there was such a disparity between the judges, within each category. So, one had given me a 9 for technique and one had given me a 7 or something. And so that's what I mean when I say it's subjective, and every single judge is looking at the same piece of beadwork and seeing something different because they've got different expectations. And that can be that they've got very high standards themselves, or it can be that they're actually judging a technique that they actually don't know how to do.
Yeah.
And unless you know how to do a technique, you have no idea what skill level is required, what the complexity is, what the difficulties are.
Yeah.
So I think it's really hard to judge in that sense, because sometimes things can look like they're really difficult and really wow. Yeah. And in actual fact, they're really simple.
Yeah, that's why I was really happy that 5 of you volunteered to be in the jury.
Yes.
Because if I look at the panel of judges, then everyone has a different style. And that gives us the biggest possibility that at the end, the numbers, they show like as close to, it always will be subjective.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least
you can't get away from that.
Yeah, but at least not based on the opinion of one person, of one specific style.
And I also felt, from a judging perspective, this competition was great because I wasn't being asked to look at a set of pictures and pick my favorite piece, I was being asked to look at each individual photo and judge it. How good was the coloring used? How good was the technical ability displayed? How original was it? And how good was the photograph? So funnily enough, I might have picked something different if I'd just gone, what's your favorite piece?
Yeah.
When you're analyzing each piece and judging each one against a given criteria, I think it becomes fairer. It's then about trying to, judge in your head, what a number 5 or a number 2 equals, but you're placing the same level against all the pieces, which is really helpful, actually.
Yeah. And one of the criteria, it was actually judging the photography. And when I look at the beehive piece, which we are showing now on the screen, then, oh my God, you went so high up with the level of your photography here. Like, this is, I think, really giving it. I didn't see the item in real life, but I think it gives it its justice.
Well, thank you. Yes, because that's another area that I will talk about. To me, certainly my photos have improved somewhat since the previous lot in 2007. But one thing that I have become very good at doing is making pieces that are just ridiculously complicated to photograph. So don't do that, anybody else who's watching this. Be more sensible than I am. Although seriously, it is a good idea to really read the rules carefully and think about what you are entering. Because again, with Bead Dreams, the actual piece is going to be judged physically in person. So all my photos had to do was get me into the finals where the piece was sent in. So that was about trying to show as much of what my piece had to offer, and which was quite a lot. It's actually the bottom, it's actually one big box. I don't know if there is a photo in there somewhere, Erika, of the full box put together.
Yes, I have to hide one picture now because
sure.
I can put all like 4 things on the screen, so the 2 of us plus 2.
Yeah, so that the newest one that's up, that shows you the bottom layer with 6 drawers that pulled apart. Each of them had a little, bee or a flower or something on it. Then we had another layer with the queen bee hidden in the middle of the hive. And then you can see in the picture on the left, the top layer, and the lid actually opens on that as well. So that was 8 compartments in the box, trying to show that, and then trying to show the whole piece assembled where you've got the flowers cascading down it and the bees and the butterfly and everything. It took a lot of calculation to work out because I was only allowed to submit 5 photos. And it was how do you pack all of that information into 5 photos to give a sense of what this thing does. So you just don't need to make life that challenging for yourselves, is all I would say. It can really fall apart. I had the same problem with my Battle of the Beadsmith pieces. We've got high stakes photos. That was the first year I did the battle. And that necklace was just ridiculous to photograph. And that's Battle of the Beadsmith competition is only judged on photos. So I don't think I did myself any favors, because I think probably a lot of people viewing it couldn't even comprehend what they were looking at. There's another photo of me wearing it. These show the details really nicely. So it had a front section and a back section. And the whole thing was reversible as well. So as you can see in there, the little deck of cards that's on the left-hand side of the photo of me wearing it, that was the clasp, and it's a magnet that pulls apart.
Wow.
And you can see in those 2 photos, one side of it, you've got the back of the cards on that hand that's displayed out. The other side, you've got the front of the cards. The whole piece was reversible, both on, from the side you're wearing it to flip over and also front to back. So you could wear it with those dice hanging down the back and the other half hanging down the front. So I really got too clever for my own good there, and I went out in round 1 But I have actually worn the necklace and I still love it, and it's sitting just over that side of my where I can admire it. But yeah, so the point I'm making in a really long-winded way is whenever you start a competition as well, read the rules really, really carefully, because there is nothing worse than spending 2 months beading a piece and then finding that you can only submit one photo of it and you've created something so complicated that it needs at least 10 photos to show it. So yes, it's an annoying detail that you have to abide by rules for these things, but unfortunately that is always the case.
Yeah, indeed. And just one thought about this, that in this case, you decided to use a model yourself,
Indeed,
actually.
Yes.
So I think sometimes that really adds on how the piece is just taken in by the jury, because
definitely,
I absolutely agree that I see on this picture, which we have on the left hand side, I see the details, I see how complicated it is, I see how much thought went into it, but then when I look at the modeled picture, then it's like really like blowing my mind that, oh my god, the whole structure, the construction of it is just it gives it a different perspective.
Yes, I mean it's now a good time to move on to talking about photography for competitions. It seems to lead in naturally, because I would start that by saying that although my photography has improved, it's still far from perfect. But it's easier to comment on other people's photographs than to take your own perfectly. So in anything I say, there is no judgment here at all. The standard of the photography, and indeed the standard of the beadwork throughout the competition you've all just taken part in, was amazing. Especially on technique. I think I found very little to fault on the technique of any of it. So, I mean, you're a brilliant set of beaders I'm talking to here, that's for sure. But a few things did strike me. First of all, having put in all the effort that you've put into your beading, you need to just get the absolute basics right in the photography. And the two most basic things are good lighting and getting your picture in focus.
Yeah.
And I know the lighting, actually, although I say it's a basic thing, is actually also one of the hardest things to get right. But top tip, and most people will say this, try and photograph in natural light. So if you can, take it outside. I'm lucky, my beading room, I've actually got 2 huge skylights over me. So I've actually got really good natural light in here at all times. But even having done that, probably 99% of my photos, when I take them off the camera and put them on the computer screen, they're still not bright enough. So I use editing software to just get the lighting levels right. And never use the flash on beads, because it just reflects so much off the surface. So it can change the colors, it can make your pictures appear overexposed when they're not. So just always turn the flash off.
It also, in my experience, the flash also makes the beadwork look very like hard.
Yes.
Yeah, that it's not the soft natural light what we are looking for, but it just gives a different feeling.
Yeah. So, I mean, always try and avoid the flash if you can. Most cameras or even phones have got a setting to turn your flash off if it's trying to use it automatically. And actually, if it is trying to use it automatically, maybe an argument for thinking about moving position, because maybe your lighting is not great where you are. And it can be the most frustrating process. I mean, how many of us in the Beadsmith squad are posting, I can't take photos today because we've had constant rain for 5 weeks. So you do find yourself literally waiting for a nice day. And actually, paradoxically, bright sunshine is not the best day. You actually want a bright day with kind of low-level clouds. Because as soon as you start putting sunshine in the equation, you start getting shadows on your work, which again can just make it look weird. It kind of pulls the eye to where the shadow is or where the highlights are, and you lose the perspective on the piece. So that's really something that is worth thinking about. And as I say, don't be afraid to use editing software to get it right. Don't expect that your camera is going to get it right or you're going to get it right first time. But if you can get a basic kind of, general, no highlights, no shadows in there, sort of even light across the piece, then usually once you put it in editing software, you can just bring up the light level and you get it to the point where the beading looks right. It's not only about the beading looking right, it's also about the colors.
Yeah.
So in some pieces, because I was being asked to judge on the coloring, if the photo isn't up to its best, then I actually, not only am I you losing marks for your photography, you're actually also likely to lose marks for the color because I simply can't see it as a judge.
Yeah.
So that's why it matters for something like this. If this was a competition where your photo was just to get you to a point of sending the actual piece in for adjudication, then you'd get away with more. But when you're actually being judged on the photo, it's got to 100% convey the piece of beadwork that you've created in all respects.
Especially if it's only one picture you can show.
Absolutely.
Then, yes.
Yeah. So then, I mean, the other area that really struck me was the use of props and backgrounds or not, which is, what we were talking about just now with my piece. Sometimes with a necklace, it can be really handy to see it on a model where you can see the scale and everything. And there were some lovely creative photos in amongst all of that. But it's not necessary to use props to get a good quality photo. You've got to remember what you're selling here is your piece of beadwork. So in actual fact, the props and the backgrounds, lovely as they can look and artistic as they might be, they sometimes actually detract from the beadwork. You can find the beading is getting lost against its background, or your eye is being drawn by a little object over there away from the beading, which is what you want to be focusing on. So, in terms of when I was awarding top marks for photography, sometimes it was going to an image that was, staged with props and everything. And sometimes it was going to an image that was just a perfect representation of the beadwork on a white background. So, again, it's just something to think about, and maybe you experiment, try some with props, some without, and see what shows the beadwork best, because the whole point of this photo is to sell your beadwork. So a lot of those tips will also apply when you're taking photos to sell tutorials or so on. It's but for a competition, it's taking a photo that will allow whoever is judging it to see exactly what you've created, to be able to appreciate the technique, appreciate the color. Whereas when you're taking a photo to sell a tutorial, you're more selling an idea to somebody. So maybe you then want to have a glamorous model wearing that piece of jewelry because it sells that idea to your audience of, oh, if I make that necklace, I'll look glamorous like that. So there's different things going on depending on the purpose of the photo that you're taking.
And especially, for example, when someone is aiming to sell a finished piece, then I think actually what works best is a model and a kind of a lifestyle picture. That what kind of life or like piece of life you get when you purchase the jewel, and you will feel like the beautiful model, maybe with the champagne or whatever. But when you want to show the jewel, when it's a beading competition,
you maybe don't need the model in there. It depends. I mean, as we've been saying, if you need a sense of perspective to show how big the necklace is or how wide the bracelet is, then maybe putting it on the model is helpful, but it may not be. So it's just, and it's worth asking your kind of trusted friends and family members as well, because I know you get kind of tunnel vision in your own work. It's like trying to proofread your own letter or something. You end up seeing what you want to see. It's difficult to take that step back and, appreciate it from the perspective of a stranger. So it's quite a nice idea to have people around you who can help give that kind of perspective to you as well.
Absolutely. And I think with the props, it's just the nature of the human eye that it's you you see the photograph as better if your eye is directed somewhere. You look at it and you know where to look at. That it's like, that's the focus, that's the main part of the beadwork. That's what I should be looking at. But if the focus, on one hand, if the focus is not on at the right spot, and on the other hand, if there are distracting props on the picture, then we don't know where to look at.
No, it's confusing. I mean, the brain is in milliseconds computing a whole load of information when it sees a picture of something, and we're not conscious of any of that process taking place. It just happens. So things like when you're talking props, especially, don't use really bright colored things, because your eye is naturally attracted to the brightest thing in a picture. So if you've got, I don't know, a bright red apple sitting there and your beadwork sitting here, your eye is going to go to that bright red apple, not the beautiful beadwork, because that's how the brain is wired. But then on the other hand, coloring of the props is really important, because if your background is too pale, sometimes it can, detract from the color of the beads. They can get lost in it. If it's too dark, they can get lost in it. It's a lot of experimentation required. And sometimes you need to take the photo and go, does that work? Try it on a different background and it'll look like a completely different piece. It's fascinating, actually. And again, as with so much in the creative world, there's no rules. So I can't sit here and say, oh, yes, you need to do this, this, and this, and you'll have the perfect photo. No. You just need to experiment and see, you try and look at it objectively and work out what works. And as I say, if you try showing it to other people who are not beaders and not, haven't been working on that piece for months, then you'll get a different perspective on it, which will be really helpful.
Absolutely. And what I would like to add about taking pictures, that it's such a complicated process that when you hear about it, that how many different things you need to be careful about, then it can be really overwhelming. But I think that if you go, again, step by step, like you look at your picture, then start maybe noticing that, okay, this bothers me, like the shadow or the focus or the colors or the background. Then start working on that one thing.
Yeah.
And then when you are happy with it and you can like let it go a little bit as a problem, then move on to the next thing, what is bothering you.
Yes.
And you will get there.
Yes, because very often there's multiple things that aren't quite right. But if you change everything at once, you maybe lose one thing that was right. Yeah. So if, as Erika says, you change them one at a time, then gradually the thing comes together and you'll end up with that shot that you feel does justice to all your hard work. Because I mean, that's what you're looking for. It's
yeah, and I think like it's when you change everything and suddenly, let's say you are extremely lucky and suddenly it works, but you don't know why does it work. It's like with this eliminating diets, like, for example, if you have trouble with some food and you can't put your finger on it, like is it cheese, is it bread, whatever, then you eliminate them one by one and you get to the solution. And this is like the same process, I think.
It is. And I mean, although I said just now there's no rules, there are actually, the more you do this with more different photos, the more you will start to see patterns that emerge, like, oh yes, my lighting is always a problem, or actually my beadwork always looks better with props or never looks good with props. So gradually, as with anything, it's a learning experience. And the more you learn, the closer you'll get to right first time. I mean, you'll probably still always be making tweaks, even after 20 years of doing it, you'll be making tweaks, but you get to a point where you're not having to make as many tweaks because you've got more of an idea of what works well and what doesn't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And By the way, like for the taking pictures, it was one of my biggest struggles in the past,
Oh, it still is.
especially when I moved here to the Netherlands, and fellow beaders who live here can tell you that we have very little amount of sunny hours. So suddenly I was here and nothing was working what I thought that was working in the past when I had a lot more sunshine.
Yeah.
And it was really frustrating. But then one by one I was working on my lights. I was working on on the focus. And now I became very conscious about it, how I am taking pictures. And now I can make it, I take very few pictures of each piece. Now I'm taking like max 3-5 pictures of one piece because I know what is working. It was a long, frustrating process, but there is a reward at the end. And now I can have more beading time because I don't spend time experimenting.
Yeah, that's it. You've worked out the best place in your room to take the pictures, what weather will work and what won't. Because, I mean, there is we can to some degree go like, okay, it's really hopeless taking photos today. Let's hope tomorrow's a bit better. And actually, from a competition perspective, that's probably another thing to think about. Allow time for your photography as well. It's all very well beading up to 11:59 p.m. when the deadline's midnight, but then when are you going to take your photo and do that justice? So don't forget that is part of the process as much as the beading is.
Yeah, I like to reserve like at least one full day for photography for all the tweaks.
Yes, well, I mean, I would say at least that if you're weather dependent, because you don't know if your one day for photography is chucking it down with rain, really low light, you might regret that.
So Cathy, thank you so much for sharing all this insight into your beading world. It was really, I think, very useful for us to listen to all the advice about the photography tips. And also it was so reassuring to hear that you were also nervous when you were entering competitions, and it's just so normal.
Yeah, it never goes away, and even after years of doing it, you still are. And I would say actually take a step back all the time, because like I decided this year, it's actually okay to bead a piece and then go, you know what, I don't want the judgment on it. I just want to have enjoyed the process of doing it. And it's okay to say that competitions are not for everyone. You can still bead along and push the boundaries of your beadwork on your own, without necessarily wanting to put it out there to be judged by other eyes. And so it's kind of like everything else, looking after your mental health as well. So if you're sitting there right now feeling like I didn't win, and that's because my piece was rubbish, and that's because I'm a rubbish beader, and that's because I'm a stupid person, and it's amazing the rabbit holes that our minds can go down. And before you know it, you've gone from maybe your piece was missed out on a placement by 1 mark. So there was nothing rubbish about it. But we've gone from that subjective judgment that is out of your hands and is in many ways completely unfair, to you beating yourself up as a person in every walk of life. And if that's happening to you, then it's not worth it. It's really not, because it's also not true. I mean, it was just a beading contest. It's no reflection on your beading abilities or your value or worth to the rest of the planet.
Or talent, or
absolutely. And of all the competitions that I've entered, I've actually only properly won one ever. So
congratulations. I never won anything, Cathy.
Well, and that was only the public vote, so I mean, I don't know whether that counts or not. I think you have to enjoy a competition, you just got to let go of the idea of winning. If you need a prize, then figure out another way to get that prize. Don't try and compete for it.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
think this comes down to like this basic aspect that our perception of ourselves, it needs to come from inside.
Yeah.
And if there is recognition from the outside, then it's great, but that's not what it makes it or takes it.
No, but that's also the hardest thing to achieve, because I think
Absolutely.
99.999% of us, however well adjusted we are still basing a lot of our judgments on what people around us are feeding onto us as well. And the other thing is, it's just hard to get away from it, because when you pour so much energy and creativity into a piece, you are literally putting yourself in that piece. And it's actually very true that there is a certain amount of yourself that is being judged because it created that piece. So trying to take that step back and realize that my beadwork is not me is a very difficult thing to do. And it's something I don't do all the time as well. So it's, if I could share some tricks to make that happen all the time, I would, but I'm working on that.
By the way, in the meanwhile, we are getting some comments. And yes, for example, Healy says exactly what you were saying, but it's not so easy for everyone.
No.
And every judgment of the jury is subjective. And she doesn't want to, she writes, I am sure I would never participate regardless of whether my level of beadwork is high enough.
Yeah, and I mean, honor that decision. As I just said, competitions are not for everyone. They can be a good way to help you to push yourself, but you can push yourself without setting your work out for judgment as well. So
or not always, as Sarah says, when I have my down periods, I can't compete.
Yeah. No, same. I mean, I did Battle of the Beadsmiths for 3 years, and then I realized that it was actually, I was like pretty much spiraling into depression after the battle each time, because I'd spend 2 months beading and loving the process and creating something that I was proud of, and then it gets voted out in round 1. And, you don't agree with half the decisions in there. I mean, not to do any disservice to any of the competitors or the battle itself. I think it's been a wonderful vehicle for bringing beadwork to a wider audience and allowing people to show what is possible with beads and really let their imaginations fly. So there's a huge amount of positives from it. But for me personally, I realized that it was not helping me. So it was a time to walk away from that. And I guess I pick and choose a bit more about what competitions I do now. It's got to be something that I feel like I'm going to gain something from it personally, aside from the competition itself.
By the way, we have from Kata, she says, but maybe it's worth to try anyway. It can lift you up also. Yeah. Also by creating the piece, it can give you more energy, but it is very personal and depends on the cause of being down.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it can depend. You can have 1 month, as I think Sarah was saying, if you're having a time when you're feeling a bit down in your personal life anyway, then it can be a really hard challenge to then put yourself out there for judgment in some way. Yeah. So, what you feel like now may be different from what you feel like in 6 months' time. So, just, I think the big message is just to be aware of the emotional impact that a competition has.
Yeah, it can be positive and
your eyes
negative.
Open. It can, absolutely. And you can't always tell which way it's going to go. Sometimes you think you've managed to divorce yourself from the results, and then they come in and you realize that maybe you were investing more than you had thought you were. So, but big message, just remember, you are not your beadwork, and whatever is happening with your beadwork is not a reflection of you as a person in the wider world.
Not at all. And what is always nice, even if we enter competitions or not, to just remember that we are playing, and during this process of playing, we are learning and becoming better. And We make mistakes, but we always also progress somewhere. But the playfulness is definitely the most important aspect of it, I think.
Yes, and I mean, you actually learn more when you make a mistake than when everything goes right, because you tend to kind of gloss over it when it's all going right. When it gets frustrating and you can't make something work, you learn so much because you try different things, and you know, maybe they're not the right thing for that particular piece, but you'll come back to that in 2 months and go, oh, brilliant, I remember I discovered that I could do this, and it will be perfect for something else.
Absolutely. Now, UFO drawers, I have 3 of them. They are supplying ideas now for Fridays. No one has to bead alone, for example. Without them, I would not be able to come up with a design every week.
No, that's tough.
Yeah. By the way, Cathy, would you like to tell us what you are working on at the moment?
Yes, I don't know. I think some of you are in Seed Beads and More group on Facebook as well. If you are, then I'm running August's Bead Along, which is discovering bead color combinations, because I know it's an area that a lot of people struggle with. And I think, to be perfectly honest, the struggle is actually more confidence and with what's going on in their heads than their genuine ability to put colors together. So this came from an online class that I put together earlier in the year, which was about just trying to create a framework for putting together a color combination so that you've got more guarantees that, thank you, Shirley, more guarantees that you're going to get it right. I mean, you still won't get it right 100% of the time, but with some idea about where you're going, it becomes a little bit more predictable. So it's early days on that, but I'm really excited to see what everyone comes up with. I've already been seeing a few pictures of the color scheme inspirations that people are working with, and they're looking fantastic. So I think we're going to end up with a very colorful month on that. And for anyone who's not on the group, I actually also run this very thing as an online class. So you can join in with that as well. And my bigger online class, which is different from what's running in the group at the moment. It goes into practicalities, so it's not just choosing a color combination, it's also dealing with questions like, what if you want to change up one color in an existing design? So, or what if you want to change the entire coloring of an existing design? So, maybe you see a wonderful bracelet and you think, well, yeah, but I hate blue. I wish I could do that in pink. How do you know you're going to get a color combination that's pink based that will look as good as the original blue? So that's dealing with kind of the practical issues that we face day to day when we're trying to work out how to pick colors out.
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to get more comfortable and get more conscious with working with colors. And most of our beaders, I think that they are already members of the Seed Beads and More group. So, but if you are not yet, then please look it up, Seed Beads and More, and then you will have to answer a couple of questions, and Anita, the admin of the group, will come back to you in a couple of days and let you in the group. And I think this is really the right time to join the group if you haven't done it yet, because August will be really nice with Cathy.
I hope
creating
so.
color combinations.
Just between you and me, I'm a little nervous just in case everyone hates it, but hopefully not. Yeah, so that's, I kind of put that together in advance. So I'll just be sitting in the group and helping people along as and when they need it. But I'm also beading on my own personal beading mat behind the scenes to try and get some more tutorials out. And it was a couple of years ago now, I did a beaded nativity set, or started a beaded nativity set. Mine is the selling point, the unique selling point, I should say, from this is that all of my pieces are actually little beaded boxes. So the characters' heads all lift off to reveal storage space inside all of these. So back then I managed to bead, the main characters, obviously Mary, Joseph, Crib, Shepherds, Kings, Angel and the sheep. But the whole piece still needs its donkey and an ass and a stable and the camels. So I nearly finished the donkey and I'm partway through the stable at the moment. So just watch this space as the year progresses, and I hope that they'll be out in time for other people to make them before Christmas, and certainly in time for me to display by Christmas. So that's
yeah,
the plan.
I love this project, Cathy. And by the way, you mentioned beaded boxes. Also, if we have beaders here who would like to learn how to make beaded boxes, then Cathy's website is also a treasure chest for that. You have many different shapes, sizes, for many different skill levels. So it's definitely
yes, I am.
To go.
It's become my obsession, beaded boxes. I think I've got over 50 different tutorials for beaded boxes on my website now. And I've got a couple of online classes as well. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Yes, I'm glad you enjoyed making that. That's fun to do.
It's a really cute one. So, thank you so much, Cathy, for joining me today. It was wonderful to have you here.
Well, and thank you. I haven't been saying, still seeing comments come up as I've been talking, but yes, just thank you, everyone, and hello for all your lovely comments. And it's been lovely to have the chance to talk to you and hopefully offer a bit of help.
Definitely. I think we got lots and lots of information, lots and lots of great advice. So thank you so much for your time and expertise. And wishing you a wonderful, colorful month in the seed beads and more.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. We'll see how that evolves. But it's lovely to see so many people participating.
It will be great. Thank you, Cathy, and have a nice rest of the day.
And you and everyone else. Bye. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, I hope you enjoyed it. I think this was a wonderful session, a wonderful topic to talk about after we just finished the competition. And in a couple of days, we can meet again on Friday during No One Has to Bead Alone. And 2 weeks ago, before International Beading Week, we started to work on a set named Anita, named after our lovely Niti. And that time, we made a bracelet. And this time, I prepared for you a matching earring. And I'm actually also working on a pendant. So shortly, I will release the material list, what you need to put together for Friday. And I am really, really looking forward to continue beading the Anita set. So it's the usual time, the usual place, and I am really looking forward to it. The motif I am showing on the screen, it can be an earring, it can be a pendant, or actually I am thinking of making it into a piece of a necklace consisting of several different motifs. So stay tuned. I still need to get some work done on it. It is asking if this is the pendant or the earring. This is the earring, but it can also be a little pendant. And I am planning to bead 2 more pieces and put them together into a full necklace. So I hope you like it. Oh, a brooch is also absolutely possible. Annalie likes it. Oh, I wanted to, yeah? Okay. Corinne likes it too. Cathy says she's behind, but Cathy, it's not a competition. And yeah, you can join every week, any week. So no worries. And yes, indeed, Shirley, it is attached to a filigree. It also works without one. I will upload filigree components very soon to the eShop. But first, actually, the cup chains are coming. long-awaited cup chains. So stay tuned. At the moment, if you navigate to the e-shop and you would like to try to find the cup chain category, then you will notice that it's logged, because first it will be available to those who purchased the particular levels of the Preciosa rescue mission. And to give you an impression that how many different cup chains will we have, look at this. This is me sitting in the box, and the cup chains were traveling in this huge box from the factory. So stay tuned. Also, this week I will be publishing the kits for the Adelaide necklace and pendant. So those of you who signed up to my online workshop at the Stockholm Bead Alone, you will receive an email shortly offering you the possibility to choose a kit or two if you would like to. So, do you maybe have any questions? Anything? Nope, I'm not for sale. Never. So, Donna is asking if I stiffen my components. No, I don't like to apply any kinds of chemicals to my beadwork. If I think that it's not stiff enough, I put it on a filigree or I use it in a bead embroidery piece, but I don't stiffen them. So thank you so much, everyone. And I'm wishing you a lovely rest of the day and really looking forward to meet you on Friday, so no one has to bead alone. Thank you and bye-bye.